Ramble.
Welcome to Curious with Josh Peck. Start the show.
Oh shit, son. Back at it again with the podcast. So much to report. What a life. What a week. God. We are well into the new year. How are those resolutions doing, guys? Are they holding up? Huh? Are we seeing them through? No? Maybe. Probably not. Why? Because resolutions are bullshit. Because you're still you. And I'm still me. And I can't speak for you. And I don't mean to project or to assume that I understand your plight. But I am a human being having a human experience, and thus I feel as though that's relatable because I'm not that special. And inevitably, we're all going through some sort of similar sort of life experience / fuckery. And to me, just resolutions don't work. Declarations, anything with Asians at the end of it, it's not for me because I'm just slow and steady. You know, if I can make like a slight directional change, like I'm talking millimeters per year, I am on a good path. You know, I heard someone say once that if you looked at at a ship crossing the ocean and you adjusted the coordinates just slightly, I don't know longitudes and latitudes. I'm not an educated guy, but I don't know what port and starboard side is. What do I look like? I was in the Navy, but nevertheless, join me in this weird sort of analogy I'm making. But yeah, but if you were just to adjust the coordinates just slightly, that ship over time would end up at a completely different spot. And you know what? At the end of the day, that's enough for me. Because these are the things I tell myself. What do you tell yourself to make yourself feel okay? Because we all have it, right? There's all got to be, there's got to be just a collection of affirmations or phrases or advice friends have given us, things that make us sleep better at night. Jesus. Sorry, guys. I'm recording this in my car in a parking garage, and I literally think the world just came to an end. No, that was just some douchebag in a really loud car. I don't mean to judge, but I'm not that guy. I'll never understand that guy that needs to be heard while he's driving, that actually pays more money to have the car tuned up, to have it become louder. What's the use? What are you trying to prove? It just sounds... You should have the car tuned to actually make a sound as you drive, which is, Dad, pay attention! Or, I have a small penis! Or, I don't feel okay about my life. That's what should be playing from your car as it drives by, waking up my baby and whatnot. Come on. But yeah, we all have the things that we tell ourselves that'll make us feel like we're just doing okay, you know? Life's rejection is God's protection. This too shall pass. I don't know. You know, it's easy. We like to move the finish line to sort of compliment wherever we are in life. I saw someone sent out, I think my mom sent me an email the other day Morgan Freeman didn't get his first huge acting role till his 50s. And Tina Fey, she didn't hit it till her 30s. And all these people, these really famous people who did it later in life. And I mean, I guess that's true, but we can't ignore the people that killed it at 20. The DiCaprios of the world, right? Some people are just killing it at an early age. Mark Zuckerberg and Bill Gates. But I don't know. What else? What else is going on in the world? The government shut down. That's cool. Who thought that could happen, right? Not me. The government just felt like 7-Eleven, that it was always open. 4 a.m., if you need a Red Bull, there's one place to go. The government and 7-Eleven. But apparently it's not true. The government can shut down like a fucking Tower Records or I don't know, what else shuts down? It's like a big box store with those signs. Like they should literally paste on the front of the White House those big yellow signs that say like clearance sale, blowout sale, closing in 8 days. Must get rid of everything. Lucky you, right? Because, I mean, God, just Jesus. People are suffering. The national parks have no people there. I mean, God, if public restrooms weren't bad enough in sort of public spaces at this point, there's just no maintenance going on. So that just sounds terrifying to go anywhere near those spots. And we never seemed closer to sort of some sort of compromise or seeing eye to eye. You know, it's like the libtards versus the right-wing hillbillies. And we're just playing for different teams. Even though we're like all breathing the same air and living on the same land and probably deep down have like similar values for the most part. I mean, there's like the extreme left or right, but when you get a little closer to the center, we're all sort of just worried about putting food on the table and hoping that our kids aren't assholes and trying to have like a vacation every now and then. I mean, it's quite simple. And yet, it just feels like we live on different planets. I mean, you know, listen, I'm a Jew from New York who grew up with a single mom loving hip hop, so I'm sure you can imagine my fucking political affiliation. But I try to understand, you know, like I don't want to be that overly idyllic fucking Hollywood type who's you know, who thinks that everyone should think like me and that I've got the market cornered because I live like in a coastal city that pretty much has like totally adopted liberal ideas. I understand that like Los Angeles and New York isn't always a great representation of what the rest of the country is thinking. And I try to understand and yet it seems like we all want the same thing to a certain extent. We just have fundamentally different ways of getting there. And we cannot agree on the best way. It's like we all want to go to Disneyland, but somebody wants to take the streets and other people want to take the freeway. And some people just want to take a fucking kamikaze plane and fly it right in a goddamn Big Thunder Mountain. And it's disheartening. But it's the reality in which we live. And maybe it was always this way. Maybe social media made it worse, or maybe social media just allows us to see it more clearly. But there have been very few people whom, you know, whose belief structure or political pursuits or passions that I didn't agree with, and yet it seems as though whenever I've sat down with these people and we've had rational conversations, we all seem to want the same thing. And they're usually quite lovely. So I don't know. I don't have the answer. I don't think I can run for president. I'd probably have to go back to school, right? Because you're gonna fucking vote for a president who went to homeschool. I mean, listen, I realize we voted for a reality star, and I'm not hating. Please don't take to the message boards. This is not like overtly political, but you know, I'd probably have to go back to school. And become a lawyer or something governmental to understand sort of the rules and whatnot. But I have thought about it. Give myself like a 28-year runway. A nice 60-year-old president, I think, is something you can get behind. I'm 32 now. Go back to college, law school, pass the bar. That's 8 years, 40. Then, you know, public service, be a sort of a community leader of some sort. Try to really start giving back, looking at the big picture. Maybe I could do it by 50. I don't know. But who knows? Who knows if I'd even be effective? You know, maybe I should just try to get like good and famous, and then you're more effective that way because people listen more to you. And when you've got like the reach of Ariana Grande with 100 million plus Instagram followers, maybe that's more effective. I don't know. I don't know the answer. But it sure does make for some good podcast fodder. Am I right? On today's show, Brian Kelly, the points guy. Heard of him? TPG.com. Do you go there? What do you like paying full price for your plane tickets? Do you like flying like fucking economy where you have to like literally pay $100 to bring on like your iPhone on the Spirit Airlines? I'm not throwing shade, but we've all been there. You know what I mean? Where you like literally have to pay for water. That ain't fun. But a guy like Brian Kelly has created a website so you don't have to do that. So you can like maximize your points and like fly on those sick lay flat beds and literally shower on an airplane. What? Who doesn't want to do that? I know. Listen, we've all flown back of the plane on Southwest, boarding group like M, and that's fine. We could slum it, but sometimes you want to treat yourself. Brian is a good buddy of mine. He's incredibly smart. He's grown quite the empire with the Point Sky, helping travelers to sort of travel better and smarter and to utilize points and frequent flyer miles to really get the most bang for your buck. And he also has a podcast, which you should listen to as well. But it was such a pleasure to sit down with my buddy, and I hope you guys enjoy. Here's Brian. Boom, boom. Sounds good. Here, give me something.
All right, 1, 2, 3. I had chicken for lunch today. Is my sound good?
Yeah, cool. Better than good. Here we are. Can you believe this? How lucky are we? We're in the Point Sky mothership. I can't believe it.
Or kennel.
The kennel, right? Because you got like 3 dogs running around here, being adorable. Do they keep up morale around the?
For sure. I mean, when you're having a bad day and you see this little gremlin face looking at you, it's like, I sometimes think it's productivity being dashed by it, but I think, having these dogs, it's a part of our culture and it's got to bring a smile to your face.
It is slightly startup-y, right?
Yeah.
I mean, to have like a pet-friendly environment.
Totally. I sold the site in 2012 to a publicly traded company, and part of my running it and is to have full control. And I like kind of feeling like we're a startup, even though we're not really. We do free lunch every day. We've got the kombucha and cold brew on tap and LaCroix endlessly supplied. But I just believe in treating my employees well, and they'll treat the company well, and it seems to have worked.
Well, you wouldn't stop pushing the LaCroix on me. I mean, at a certain
I know, and I'm
point,
not even sponsored by them. That's how much of a fan I am. I think I'm just grasping on. I'm 35 years old, so I'm kind of a millennial. I'm like on the cusp.
Me too,
so,
31.
Yeah.
Yeah. Fizzy water is fucking in.
I know, but I'm nervous now. All these reports keep coming out about it ruining your teeth.
Really?
And, but
live dangerously.
Yeah,
will
I don't
ya?
drink soda. I drink. I mean, if LaCroix is my poison, then
Come on.
Yeah.
Well, then take me down. It's incredible to walk in here, and as I said to you, I've been a fan of the website for years, and there is this really personal touch, but then you come in here, and this is like, how many employees do you have?
So in New York, we are, right now we have 7 interns, about 30 full-time. But then we've also got a team of 6 engineers in Pasadena and a bunch of people at our corporate office in Charlotte. And then we've got people like JT Genter, our =1 writer, who's a global nomad. He sold all of his belongings, and him and his wife travel around the world, just choosing destinations as they go with their cat.
Right.
We've got people all around the world writing, probably 50 different contributors. So it's really hard to pin how many people, but we do 35 new posts every day. So it's kind of like we're a full-blown kind of magazine, but daily and only digital.
And could you have ever imagined that it would be at this size or the scale?
Never. I think it was all very quick when it started. This started as just a hobby. I never wanted to even monetize this site.
And you came from the finance world?
Yeah, I was in HR. I was doing recruiting for Morgan Stanley. So my job was to recruit all the computer scientists out of MIT and Cornell and convince them to join Morgan Stanley instead of Google and Facebook, all the sexy tech companies. So I started that in August of 2007, and I had an unlimited expense account because Morgan Stanley's like, it's impossible to sell. So I would go to MIT and I'd have a whole stand of 20 Xboxes on the table giving away to get, because everyone competes for like the top computer science talent. So
and the MIT kids, they want an Xbox.
Oh, totally.
Let's be real.
So I was, all of a sudden I'm putting all these expenses on my corporate Amex and, my travel. And then during the recession, all the loyalty companies were giving huge bonuses because, business travel fell off a cliff. So all of a sudden I'm raking in, a million points a year, which was like, $20,000-$30,000 in extra compensation, right? That I wasn't getting in the form of a bonus. So points for me became, the shining part of my compensation.
The reason to keep on going.
I mean, and then I was like, okay, I'll take the, a travel assignment. I lived in Montreal during the week for about a year and a half while we set up our office there. And I lived in the W Hotel, raking in tons and tons of star points. So it became a game to me. And I've always been good at points, but all my friends were like, you're the points guy. I would help them all use their points. And at a certain point, I was like, you know what? I could probably teach people a thing or two about this.
You living at the W Hotel, I feel like it's like a heroin addict living in a poppy field. Like, you must have been in all your majesty there.
I mean, I would come in. They knew me. I was, I think, one of their top customers. They would upgrade me to the Wow Suite or the Wow Suite or the Extreme Wow Suite, and then I would scratch their back by emailing corporate that it's my favorite hotel in the world. So, when you're a business traveler and you're on the road so much, you gotta play the game, right?
Right.
Because business, it gets old,
and lonely.
Yeah. And when you think about it, you're giving so much of your time, your life, your youth to a company that, it's okay. You should get points and loyalty back. And no, it's not the company's property. And, very few companies will keep their employees' points, but across the board, when you travel for business, those points are yours.
And I have a follow-up question about that. But before, now that you have enough space between you and Morgan Stanley, are you willing to admit your most extravagant purchase on your corporate card? Your expense account?
Yeah, it's been 8 years. So no, I'm still friends. I never did anything out of policy, but I was certainly milking the system. Like all my coworkers, they didn't realize the points thing. So I figured out how to, the expense system, I figured it out. It was a pain in the butt system to fill in your forms and upload them, and you'd have to fax a piece of paper in. But all my colleagues were like, Brian, you're the best. Thank you so much for putting this $30,000 charge on your card. And I'm like, sitting there thinking to myself, like,
you're killing me, guys.
Stole like $200 from you in points. But so I would take, there's all these different ways to earn points. There's restaurants and dining, so airline dining programs. It's very simple. You just attach your credit card to a dining program, and then you get additional miles in addition to the expense. So, I'd take all 60 of our interns to these random restaurants in Times Square, and all the interns were like, Brian, why do we keep going to this weird Brazilian restaurant?
Yeah,
and it was a participating restaurant in the extra mileage program. So I was earning like 5,000 extra miles per lunch. Which, back then 100,000 miles was round trip business class to Europe.
Yeah, that's huge.
So, each lunch was 5% of a business class ticket. So, I mean, it's all these little things that added up. And, even though I didn't have a penny to my name, really, I was still flying first class all around the world.
And do you think that, was there a part of you in doing that, and we'll talk more about sort of your upbringing and where you come from, but I imagine what I've heard from many people that have had the trajectory that you've had, and I know a few of people that started in the traditional finance world, had dreams of something else, not exactly sure what, and then built it to something incredible and kind of said, God, I'm glad I had that experience, but I'm not sure I could have ever gone back. Was there parts of you in that super corporatized financial world where you were like, I hope this isn't me for the rest of my life?
100%. I mean, the biggest thing for me was, so I always looked at my boss's boss and I would be like, I don't want that job. They're miserable. And for me, so I worked in HR during 2007 I was there through June of 11.
Before the collapse.
Well, no, that was the height of the collapse. Yeah,
height.
So 2007 was the beginning and 2008 was terrible. 2009, terrible.
Was it like zombies walking the halls?
Totally. So I'm 6'7", and even though I was in recruiting, and we still recruited college grads in tech because you can't just stop, right? But we were firing people left and right. We called them RIFs, reductions in force. And even though I was in recruiting, they would pull me in to be the person that they would fire people all day through a reduction. And I'd be standing outside the door in a suit, and I would have to escort these people who had worked their whole lives at Morgan Stanley. I'd have to wait. They couldn't go back to their desk because it would cause a scene. So I'd have to escort them directly to the elevator, then stand in the elevator with them and walk them out and then through the turnstile. And
Do you have any good stories? Did anyone ever curse you out?
you know, people were, I'm like, I was open with people. I'm like, this sucks for me too, you know, but
Yeah.
I got to do it. I'm not losing my job by not doing it. But what crystallized it for me was I worked one day with this head managing director. I fired half of his team with him, demoralizing day. And then the next day, you know, we would get these, emails with a spreadsheet of just the people who were going the next day. And then the next day I fired him. It was so cutthroat. And the next day I was walking him out. He thought he had made it through because, I mean, it really just showed me, I mean, working in a super corporate world, like they're not going to have your best interests at heart, right? Ever. And, you know, it's just good to know that. That's not saying you can't have an amazing career at a big company, but for me, I saw a lot, but I learned a ton. And, you know, I think what's allowed me, there's a bunch of other bloggers in this space. What's allowed me to build this to where it is today is my experience at Morgan Stanley, especially since the companies that I deal with as my advertisers, the credit card companies, are very similar to investment banks, right? And how they're set up and legal teams and compliance and the complexities of getting something approved through a large corporation. You need to understand that. And I always did. And I think that gave me a huge advantage when, you know, it was me and a bunch of other bloggers, and it allowed me to kind of eclipse them over the years.
Well, it sounds kind of trite, but it's so true. Of like, you'll never know what your past experiences that you've accrued, how in weird ways they've served you to land in this place.
100%. And a huge example of that is, so I had bought the Points Guy domain in April of 2009. I had the idea. I sat on it for a year because a lot of people, you know, I self-doubt. A lot of people would say, oh, come on, the world doesn't need another travel blog, Brian. You know, you're in HR, and you get all that self-doubt. But the reason why I started it was because a former coworker, she was like my work wife. I loved her. Her husband convinced me. He's like, come to my house in Staten Island. And he was a WordPress developer. I didn't even know what WordPress was. You know, I had the
I don't even know what it is.
Yeah. So he's like, if you come to my house in Staten Island, I'll set you up with your own website, and so that you can start blogging tomorrow.
What's that, like HTML?
Yeah, I mean, it's like, WordPress is like, you know, what most blogs are run on, and we're still a WordPress, you know, 8 years later, you know, tons of, you know, we're heavily modified. I've got my own WordPress developers now, but, you know, so I went there. It was a former coworker that I stayed in touch with, and it changed my life because the next day I started blogging, and I said, you know, so it was June of 2010, and I said, I'm going to blog every single day because the other travel bloggers in my space were only blogging a couple times a week. And I remember going to their websites, clicking refresh. I'm like, I want more content. So I was like, you know, if I'm going to come in, I'm going to give this like a New Yorker's perspective. I work on Wall Street. I'm not going to write about stuff that people don't care about. And, you know, I just started blogging every single day, and it was, you know, that fall, it really started to take off. And I remember going to my first cocktail party when someone was like, you're the Points Guy. And I just remember being like, it was like, wow. Like,
I've made it.
You know, because behind the computer, you know, as a content creator, you put stuff out there, and, you know,
yeah, it's your
in
own
the beginning, you don't
vacuum.
realize, you know, you don't have fans coming up to you in the beginning and stuff. So that was like, wow, people, and I was making no money on it, but that was when I was like, I think I'm onto something here. I love doing it. I would stay up till 2 a.m, even when I had to work the next day, to make sure I got my blog post out. And it really is that reader feedback to this day, what still keeps me really excited about keeping the blog going.
It's funny too, and it's sort of a douchey quality of mine, but at this point, because I've gotten Drake and Josh for so long, since I was like 14, when someone comes up to me, I'm appreciative, of course.
Yeah.
But I'm always like, okay, cool. But like if someone's like loved the podcast or like loved some like random art house movie I did years ago, I'm like, can we just take a moment? Because I friggin' appreciate you. Like that, but no, I know what it means to all of a sudden be validated by the outside population for people to be interacting with this thing that, for the most part, everything we do for people like us, it lives in our minds until we finally put it out there.
And you self-doubt yourself, because I would always say, well, I'm not, and truthfully, I'm not the smartest person in the points world. I'm not. There's plenty of and actually many people who work here today, you know, I don't even write that much anymore. I mean, I still have very strong editorial control, and, you know, my talent is really in hiring smarter people than me. And that's like any good business, is knowing that I'm, you know, and in the beginning I wasn't big with United. It was a huge knowledge gap for me, but I still had to cover it. And I would always think, oh, you know, is this good enough, or am I an expert enough? And especially starting to go on TV, and I would sit there and I would nearly faint before going on live TV, because I'd be like, what if I come off as stupid, right? And you doubt yourself. But you turn a corner, and for me, it was like paying to get media training, which I didn't think I needed, but I went for like 2 days at this company in Chicago, and they brought me through how to, you know, the purpose of an interview on TV, as you know, if you're going on as a free contributor, is you got to get your point across. Like you got, and you also, it's okay to bring it back to you and understanding, you know, the purpose and how to, even if you don't know the answer to a question, you can always bridge it back to something you do know. So
Sure.
This whole thing has been a huge learning thing for me, but mostly about self-confidence, and that I think we doubt ourselves the most, that we can't do something, or someone's better, someone's funnier, someone's better looking. But
oh, please, welcome to my therapy sessions. I mean, that's a major topic. And look, you hear that as a through line with any great entrepreneur who has attained some things is it's like it's a mixture of ability and insight and smarts, and also like this weird blinders mentality and ability in which to turn off that self-doubt that most of us are fucking governed by.
And you know, and the internet trolls are a big thing. And in the beginning, it would make me nauseous. I actually was so stressed out, and, you know, nasty thing. People will always say nasty things. And it's so funny. And a lot of my writers now, it's funny, I'm coaching them through the nasty comments will always be there. But, you know, taking feedback is hugely critical. And when we mess up, my biggest blog post of all time, it got 1 million views in hours, was when I called the United Airlines dragging off the plane, that Dr. Dow. I came into this office and I read the reports. I'm like, oh, that guy, the passenger. I kind of blamed the passenger. I was like, you know, when the captain tells you to get off, you just got to get off. Right. I didn't look into all the details, and I totally got it wrong. And the Pitchfork Mafia on Twitter came after me, and I totally realized instantly, oh, wait a minute, and then I looked into the details, and it's like, no, it wasn't this simple, like they asked him to get off, and he said no. But I wrote a blog post right away just saying, I got it wrong. You know, I was so wrong because this is actually you know, and we're pro-passenger. That's the thing. We're not paid by airlines. We don't take a cent from the airlines, from the hotels. Like, we are pro-consumer. Like, we're pro-traveler. So it was just such a weird thing for me. I'm like, I really got that wrong. But calling it out and calling myself out, people, you know, then I turned that into something that was good. People, I think, especially this was in 2016, and, you know, there's an inability, I think, in our politics and press to admit mistakes, and I think people found that refreshing, that I just was like, you know what, I was totally freaking wrong. Zero ways about it. And so
it humanizes you. And I think people inherently appreciate that too, because we do live in an age of like, I'm right, I know I'm right in the immediate, and people are so staunch on their beliefs.
And you just got to dig in, and no matter what.
And people, I mean, as even up to the highest leadership in the land, it's like people's inability in which to ever admit the slightest misstep. And by the way, what happened to that doctor was completely awful. But however couple millions he got for that, that was a worthwhile experience.
Yeah, you haven't heard a peep out of him, so I'm pretty sure that that he did pretty well.
So where are you from?
So I was born in Long Island, and then when I was, hold on one second, let me just.
No worries, take your time. They can come in.
No, they're gonna be so noisy.
Okay.
Get out of here.
Perfect.
So I was born. So I was born in Long Island, and then.
What part?
I was born in Manhasset, and then grew up in Blue Point, like next to Sayville, like way out in Long Island.
You know, I'm a New Yorker native and from the city, and I have friends, and so I know so many people from Long Island. And no matter what, I'll be like, "What part?" And they'll bring up some fucking part of Long Island I have never heard of. There's so many towns.
Yeah. But I grew up mostly outside of Philly. So I grew up out in Doylestown, the Philly suburbs, and then, you know, went to college in Pittsburgh, and then moved right away. I always knew New York was where I was meant to be. I grew up in suburbia, and I was like strip malls and chain restaurants. I love them, but I'm like, this life isn't for me. I want to go to the big city.
Did you do any traveling as a kid?
Not really. I mean, I learned about points in the 90s. So my dad got a job at a startup, and I started booking all of his travel because I was like a computer whiz when I was 12. And one day he's like, we have all these frequent flyer miles. So I used them to book our family to the Caribbean. So every winter we would spend a week in the Cayman Islands or Barbados for free on my dad's points. So it sucked that he like missed my basketball games and birthdays because he had to travel a lot. But we turned his points into, you know, this amazing family bonding trip once a year.
Oh shit, we got another ad for y'all. So let's get crazy and let's hear it. Because this podcast has advertisements, because we're doing well, no matter what you've heard. Anyway, What would it look like if we all listened more? Listening to audiobooks inspires us. It motivates us. Dare I say, it even brings us closer. And there's no better place to listen than Audible. You can get your first audiobook for free along with 2 selected Audible original titles and exclusive fitness programs when you start a 30-day trial. I love Audible. I love being able to listen and learn while I'm working out or driving or what have you. I recently listened to David Goggins' new book, and the man is just so much tougher and he's just a better person than me. But it gives me a goal and something to work for. And you know what? That is awesome. So you can get started with a 30-day trial. Just go to audible.com/curious or text curious to 500-500 and listen for a change. That's audible.com/curious or text curious to 500-500. I always use this example, and I love Howard Stern, and I interestingly I just interviewed Vincent D'Onofrio, who echoed the same experience. Whereas Howard Stern's father was in radio, and so he's like, of course I went into radio because it was a way to be heard. And D'Onofrio's father was in the arts, and he wanted to be an actor. Do you find that weirdly you've mirrored your father's
totally.
path?
I call him the original points guy. So his name is also Brian Kelly. He's
Okay.
the third son of 3 boys and a girl. I'm the third son of 3 boys and a girl.
Irish?
I idolize Irish.
Love it. My wife,
He's
Irish.
6'3", I'm 6'7". I idolized him as a kid, and yeah, when I look at it now, I'm like, it makes sense. Like he was, I learned all I know about points when I was a 12-year-old in the 90s. Like, how random is that? And now it's my career. So he set me up for this amazing, even he had no idea, but he gave me really sage advice. He, when I first started the blog, I tried that. My business model was totally different. It was, people would pay me $50 and I would tell them how to use their points.
Right.
So I would blog to get clients that I would then charge $50. So I was making like a couple hundred, then $1,000 a month, but I was running this like really half-assed travel agency on the
Janky
side.
service.
Janky, yeah.
Yeah.
And my dad's like, dude, you got to learn how to make money in your sleep. And I was like, come on, Dad. And he's like, you got to get advertising and build an audience. Instead of teaching one person how to use their points, what about teaching millions? And I was like, Dad, you're crazy. What do you know? He's in pharmaceutical sales or in the healthcare industry. But it's so totally right. I mean, he guided me into points in the 90s and then really pushed me to monetize in a different way. And he's not in digital publishing. So I think that's one tip. You can get amazing advice. A lot of times we're so myopic and let me go to the most successful CEO of a business to give me the business advice I need. But
Yes.
in fact, some of the best advice you can get is all around you. And it's opening your mind up and realizing, and just like that old coworker that I worked with, she changed my life. I would not have started the blog. I'm a lazy procrastinator deep down. And I was crippled with choice and is it an LLC or an S Corp? And, you can bog yourself down in all the details. And, random people can totally change your life. So always keep the people you think are going to get you to the next level are often not. They're all around you.
Yeah, I mean, inevitably you don't know who your apostles will be until you've been able to sort of to testify that you've been through the tribulation and you're in the trial, and you're able to sort of think back and incorporate this old advice that was given to you. And so, what was the moment of no return? When did you leave the big fancy expense account and say, I'm going out on my own?
So I started the blog June of 2010. I had about 20,000 monthly readers by that fall. I had written a couple deals that kind of went viral, but it's still a relatively small blog following. But the turning point was that spring. A friend of mine from college, he kept asking to hang out, and I thought he wanted to go on a date with me, and I wasn't interested, and I kept putting him off for like months. And finally he was like, Brian, you are an idiot. He's like, you're blogging about credit cards, and did you know I work for a company in affiliate marketing? I had no idea what that was. It sounded spammy to me.
Yeah, what is that?
Affiliate marketing is simply the sending leads through your website. Fashion bloggers, if you click a link to buy a pair of jeans, they get a cut, right? It's an
Gotcha.
Amazon link. It's, hey, use my Uber link and I get credit. That's
Love it.
affiliate marketing, right?
Oh, I do that.
Yeah. So I was like, what are you talking about? He's like, meet me for a drink. And he told me all about it. And basically I was blogging on a gold mine. I was blogging about credit cards, direct linking to AmericanExpress.com, Chase.com, because that's the best for my reader. And he's like, the same exact offer and link, I'll give you a link through our system and you'll get $100 a credit card. And I was like, wait a minute, I've got like 30,000 readers at this point, and even if a couple get $100 a credit card,
it's not bad.
10 of them, that's $1,000, and I've got 30,000 readers.
It's good money.
And it pretty much went that way. The first month I made $5,000 by simply just writing the same stuff I was writing anyway, but just replacing it with the link. And then that April was the day my life changed. Was the New York Times, Seth Kugel, the frugal traveler, he had emailed me, and it went into my spam email box for 6 weeks. I was randomly going through my spam box, and I see, oh my God, the New York Times. And I hadn't really had no national press at that point. And he's like, yeah, I've heard about you, points guy, but I don't think points are good for frugal travelers, budget travelers. And I'm like, oh, you have no idea. So I emailed him, met with him for 3 hours, changed the way he thought about points. He booked a trip that day that saved him $2,000, and he was just blown away, total points addict. So he ended up writing this amazing story, my first big piece about the points guy, on the same day that there was this 100,000 point offer on this Chase British Airways card, way before the 100,000 Chase Sapphire. This was 2011. And basically, so I had the links and my content. I wrote, this is why the Chase British Airways card, never use it on British Airways. There were all these amazing ways to use British Airways. I mean, you could get like 40 free flights. It was crazy.
Wow.
But I basically broke it down for consumers. Like, this is how you do it, step by step, picture by picture. And bam, the post went viral. And the same day that offer went live, the New York Times article hit. So my traffic just shoots through the roof. Meanwhile, I see the clicks, because that's how you judge. I only get paid if someone gets approved for a credit card. So you never know really what your pay is going to be until the credit card company
you gotta
tells
hope that credit score is 700 and above.
And so, but meanwhile, I'm sitting there in my apartment. I'd taken off work, so I was like, I know this is going to be huge. And then the New York Times article hits, and my traffic's through the roof. And our clicks to that credit card were 1,000, 2,000. And I'm like, starting to do the math, and I'm like, if only 2% of these convert, like, it became crazy.
Huge.
And that day, I think I cleared $100,000 in actual sales once they started coming in the next couple of days. And I'm like, oh my God.
Oh, you're like, I quit.
Granted, it was like, the crazy thing is there was like a 3-month delay until you actually see that money. So I actually quit my job that day. My mom was like, are you insane? Like, this is funny money. It's not real money, in a computer system. I'm like, but yeah, Mom, it's like a legit company. It's Amex, and Chase.
Yeah,
and
it's
luckily,
coming.
They loaned me $10,000. And my mom was like, what are you going to do about health benefits? And I'm like, I'm rich, Mom. I'll pay for them.
Don't worry about it.
Can you loan me $10,000? Because I don't know if the check's actually going to clear. But lo and behold, I quit June of 1 year from the day of my first blog post. And I was traveling later that month in Spain. And I remember, I'll never forget the day the Chase alert came, that the direct deposit came, that the money was real.
It's
and
real.
I sat there just staring at my phone. Like, I'd never... I made $70,000 a year working at Morgan Stanley, hustling my ass off, and I started to make 6 figures a month, and it was just like, here we go. So then I started hiring some people to help me because I couldn't do it all myself. And then in May of 2012, a company came along and bought it for. So it's been a wild, wild ride. And the crazy thing is, I still feel like we're just getting started. Like, there's so much more to do.
It's so funny too, because I started making money from social media in 2014, and until then I had been sort of at the mercy of this crazy business that you have no control over. And if the casting director's in a bad mood that day, you might be best suited for the role, but you ain't getting it because they don't like you because there was too much traffic on the 405 or their latte wasn't fucking right.
Yeah.
And I remember I had become pretty big on Vine and social media, and this company reached out over email and they said, we're going to pay you $6,000 to put up this video. You can delete it in a week. It's 6 seconds, and that's it. It'll be in your PayPal account the moment you post. And it was such a leap for me because I'm like, I don't even have a PayPal account. I don't know what that is. And I'm like, this sounds all they would have had to include was, I'm a Nigerian prince. And I would have been like, this is fake. But lo and behold, I'm like, well, I'll post it. And if they don't pay me, I'll delete it right away. And I saw that PayPal hit, and it was a whole new world. It was a whole new world.
Yep. I mean, that's what you hit it right on the head. The democratization of fame and influence, out of the hands of casting directors. I can't tell you how many times I've gone the opposite. Originally I thought I have to get a TV show. That's, because that's how you do it. Most people get a TV show, then
Sure.
they get picked up. And for me, I was already making money. And then I was like, to take all that time away to do a show for a net, but I kept telling myself in the beginning, though, well, that's the way to do it.
To legitimize.
If I'm not repped by UTA, and I remember going into UTA's offices in 2012, and, I'm like, oh, I'm making a lot of money. And they're like, well, we don't really get what you're doing. We don't, you're not the typical actor. How are we going to, monetize you? And I remember getting rejected. I was making money, but I still felt like I had to be accepted into, having a manager tell me how to manage my business.
Welcome
guess
to
what?
my life.
I ended up creating my own business, managing it. And, people were always like, one day you might be the editor-in-chief of Travel and Leisure. You know what? I just hired the head of social media from Travel Leisure, the head of video, like you couldn't pay me. We have more reach now, not to brag, but kind of to brag.
Brag it up. Brag that shit.
But it's all these people who, in the traditional world that try to put you into a box. And
I think that's so right.
You got to thrive off of, creating your own, it's nervous, that in between space. No one has ever done really what I've done. I don't have a lot of contemporaries and peers. There's certainly bloggers out there, but no one really in this points credit card world who's kind of taken a business to where it is. So on the same hand that it's exciting and new and every day, you have the ability to shift where your business is going to go. But on the other hand, it's really frightening. It's kind of nice to sit around the water cooler with like a peer and be like, bitch about, what's going on at work. And especially when you're an entrepreneur and have all employees to then take care of, the stress starts to mount. But I wouldn't give it up for anything. I'm exactly where I'm supposed to be, which is a cool feeling.
I think that's so right. And I too, and because we grew up and we talked about you're 35, I'm 31. So we're sort of at like the tail end of what would be qualified as a millennial.
You're a pretty firm millennial.
I get, and then but then like, what are people under 25? Is that Gen Z?
Yeah, I think that's what they call it.
That's different. Yeah. Who knows? Yeah. But I know what you mean because, especially for me, right? I was so indoctrinated with traditional TV and movies, and then there was a renaissance over the last couple of years where it said, well, no, that's not the way anymore. Mm-hmm. And with Netflix and social media and what have you, like people aren't as incentivized to go to the movies. And if they do, they just want to see massive tentpole superhero movies that I can't get in.
Yeah.
But, inevitably it's reconciling that old story, that ego that says, oh, I've got to fit into their standard.
Yep.
Or accepting the fact that you've trailblazed your own course. Yeah. And I think that's everything.
It's cool. No, I mean, this modern, this economy that we're in and where that can be possible. I mean, I look around this office and like, it all really, this sat in my brain for a year, caged in by self-doubt. And thank God I opened up that box and slowly over time it's grown. And, but yeah, I mean, I just think of so many people who have the same story. And to be honest, you can, America is in an interesting place, I think, in terms of politics. But America is an amazing country where this type of stuff happens with way more regularity than any other country. And it is such a breeding ground for creativity and new platforms. And, being in the media space now and just looking ahead at how, even within the last 18 months, Facebook for my business and how we were so focused on building up our Facebook likes. And then out of nowhere now, it's our private Facebook group is really where a ton of action's coming from. And, new platforms, the website Flipboard, which is an amazing aggregator of news, is one of our top traffic drivers, all within the last 4 months. Now we get hundreds of thousands of new readers because people are aggregating their news on Flipboard, and it curates the news for people. And it just so happens that a lot of people want the Points Guy post. So we're reaching new audiences, and digital media is in a really interesting place. A lot of websites don't know how to make money, and traditional media, print magazines are in a weird place. But
a spiral.
For innovative people, there's so many ways to make money, and sometimes it might put you out of your comfort zone. And but the ability to do that, I think, is amazing.
Are you constantly? Is it like a daily thing where you're investigating new places, like the flip book you were saying? Different places where you can best utilize your imprint.
Absolutely, yeah. Channels, Pinterest, we haven't paid attention to for a long time. I mean, it's almost like so many channels. Like we're huge with business travelers, but we have no LinkedIn presence. I have my own LinkedIn profile from pre-TPG days that I think I had an intern on my social media team zhuzh up one day a couple years ago, and I have more requests than I can handle. But like, that's a huge opportunity sitting right in front of my face. Podcasting, I have had it on my to-do list for years. I mean, there's so much to talk about in travel, and there's not tons of travel podcasts and points, and a podcast that will actually teach you how to use points, I think is really cool. There's a bunch of travel podcasts. So now it's almost overwhelming. The different Quora for answering questions is an amazing resource, and there's a huge gap there for travel experts, and they've asked me to, come on, but I'm like, so many hours in the day, do you want to be really good at certain platforms, right? Obviously the blog, the site, we kill. I'm so focused on having talent and the best writers that, distributing that information then becomes a challenge, but it's a great problem to have.
Did you, on your way to creating this thing, did you cite any of those? I mean, like, not Tony Robbins, but like any of those, CEO whisper types? Like, read any of those books?
I never read the 4-Hour Work Week or any of those. I respect. I met Tony Robbins once offset at a TV thing, and he was shocked. He's like 6'5", and I'm 6'7", so I was kind of
What's up, Tony?
up. Yeah. No, I respect that people get a lot of inspiration from them. My inspiration doesn't really come from the business world. I'd worked with Nobel Peace Prize winners, so I'm a huge anti-war person. I don't believe, as you travel, you realize war screws up everything. It's the root cause of so many issues, from poverty, public health crises. So I have the ability to, through this organization called Peace Jam, work with 14 of the world's most incredible Nobel Peace Prize winners, Desmond Tutu, the Dalai Lama, Lama Bowie, these really powerful women who literally have helped end civil wars. So I draw strength from the stories of these people who truly have changed the world in incredibly meaningful ways. And it really, not to put down my experience, but it really puts things in perspective. And I think it's very important to surround yourself, especially, I went from having no money to a lot of money. Surround yourself with people who've done way bigger things than you. And that's so true, in that you are the sum of the people you hang out with. And I went through a phase of success in the beginning of hanging out with people who wanted to use me for the wrong reasons. And I think a lot of people who experience success will have that situation. But now I look to heroes, right? And even though I'll never help end a civil war, and I'll never go through the struggles they have, every time I listen to every word they say, and I shift it into my own life. Because
it's good. I mean, that's age-old, just good spirituality, right? Is somehow finding something bigger than just when we get bogged down in our.
And I firmly, so philanthropy is a huge part of the Points Guy. We donate a lot of money and our time and millions of our frequent flyer miles to different organizations. And there is a direct correlation between the more we started to give back as a company and get our employees engaged in giving back, the more the business has grown. So I would encourage anyone out there, especially people who achieve success relatively quickly, immediately immerse yourself in something that is way above you, right? Because the pressure of success can get to you very quickly, and monetary wealth can be, it's an instant
intoxicating
fix. It can be intoxicating, but it can totally throw you off. And and what I'll say about philanthropy is it doesn't have to be going to necessarily a food shelter and doing something you really hate doing, but you do it to give back. Like, you can find things that are incredibly meaningful. Like, I go on these trips. I go to Ghana 6 times. I've been 7 times in the last couple of years, and now we have this huge network of kids that we're working with through Peace Jam. And I learned more from these kids. I have so much fun. I have family there now. They made me a chief and the development chief of Odumase Krobo, which was totally surreal to me as a way of saying thank you. And it has expanded my life, and it's enjoyable. You can look forward to doing it. So I think of it kind of like entrepreneurship, though. Finding the charity, or I hate even saying the word charity, finding the organization to give back or the people to work with is very difficult. But once you find what you really have a passion for doing, it'll enrich your life in ways that more than any paycheck can.
What's up, my babies? We just got a quick advertisement, and then we're going to get back to this incredible conversation. I'm having a great time, aren't you? Cool, let's do it. Robinhood. Yeah, it's an investing app that lets you buy and sell stocks, ETFs, options, and cryptos, all commission free. And you know what they strive? What do they strive for? To make financial services work for everyone, not just the wealthy, those wealthy knuckleheads. They've got non-intimidating ways for stock market newcomers to invest for the first time with true confidence. And, other brokerages, they charge up to $10 for every trade, but Robinhood doesn't charge commission. Yeah, no commission fees. Trade stocks and keep all of your profits. Plus, it's easy to understand. They've got like charts and market data that's super simple. Place a trade in just 4 taps on your smartphone, and you can learn how to invest as you build your portfolio. So, Robinhood is giving listeners a free stock like Apple, Ford, or Sprint to help build your portfolio. Sign up at curious.robinhood.com. That's curious.robinhood.com. What part of the world have you been to, and that where you have seen it affected by something like war or what have you, or bad diplomacy, where you were like, God, like this is, we live here sort of without an awareness of what our actions, the result of it.
I'm a huge scuba diver. If I can encourage people to, a lot of people say, oh, I'm nervous and scuba diving and breathing. It is, you definitely do want to take a course to do it, but most of the world is covered in water. So if you never really explore the underwater world, and granted, scuba diving, you're only going to go down 100 feet, so you're not even going to really see, but experiencing the underwater world is like nothing. It's spiritual. You can meditate. You're one with nature. Sharks are not our enemy. You realize sharks don't give a crap about people.
I don't know about all that.
Well,
that's not how they portray it on Shark Week.
Well,
Jesus,
that's what's the problem with our media. But,
yeah, I tell you.
But anyway, so throughout Southeast Asia, there's especially in Bali, so much trash, and a lot of through misinformation. A lot of fishermen use dynamite on reefs to kill fish, which then inadvertently destroys entire ecosystems, and it's. So, the overfishing of areas that really, screws the entire ecosystem. Like that, to me, that's everywhere. That's in the United States, and as a country, we produce tons and tons of trash. So I think environmentally, as I travel, you realize like the world is all interconnected. We're one world. We're all sharing the same air. And so, yeah, that's what I would say is, I'm just an optimist. So you can go a lot of different places, and, people will criticize our charity work and that, because we're not feeding people, that, educating kids through Nobel Peace Prize winner, it's not substantial enough. You're not putting a roof over people's head or getting them clean water, but you can always think things are worse somewhere or better somewhere. But it's
right. And what are those people doing?
Exactly.
No, and you're planting
people
the
who take the
seeds
time to criticize me about doing enough or not enough charity is that's
rough.
always very rich,
And so in starting the company, what was there, can you point out maybe one moment in particular where you felt like it was a real sort of crossroads moment, or a time in which you were truly tested and you came through it, for the better?
Well, the big thing was hiring other writers to write under my name, right? The site was mine. It was management 101. To expand your business, you're always going to have to hire other people, right? You have to hire good people that you trust. And I made a ton of mistakes. It's funny because I came from HR and recruitment, and I think I used a lot of those skills, but a lot of, big time mistakes. I hired too few people. I think that my biggest thing is over time, I was burning my employees out left and right. And I think trying to do too much myself, I was burnt out for a while, especially after I sold the company. It was very difficult to reconcile that I was now a part of this publicly traded company. I had left Morgan Stanley to pursue this freedom, and then now I'm a part of this big,
And when you're getting acquired, they come in and rip everything apart, right?
Due diligence. So every single dollar you've ever spent, and they talk to all your clients. They try to sniff for any bullshit that you're hiding. And, for me, it was very quick. It was only a 6-week turnaround from the time they said they want to buy to the time we closed. But, wasn't sleeping, was probably drinking a little bit too much to that's the easiest way a lot of times. You don't even realize it, but, let's meet for martinis. And,
you needed that medicine.
For sure, especially when traveling now. It's a struggle to, as much as I love traveling, it's also the one thing that can really screw with your body. And
Really
relationships, and it's hard to date people when you're like, okay, great, I'll see you in 4 weeks when I'm back, so people may see my life on Instagram and first class and amazing amazing vacations and stuff, but like any story, and on social media, there's a lot more that goes into it. And of course I'm not going to air all my dirty laundry.
Well, feel free.
That's what we're here there for.
But that brings me to my next question, because to be honest, and I love following you, and I'm not one of those people that watches your Instagram and sees you on these flights, because I'm such a neurotic Jew myself. Like, I project myself, I put myself in your shoes, and as fabulous.
Well, you literally did with your TPG shower test in Cancun. That was hysterical.
Come on. I mean, I feel like I'm part of the family here.
That was amazing.
But I know for me what traveling, that I get uncomfortable, and it's hard to be away and out of my comfort zone and whatnot. So I'm fascinated. Like, does it get lonely? Are there moments where you're like, is this really everything it's cracked up to be?
For sure. No, I mean, I luckily enough am able now.
Wait, I'm sorry. How many days are you gone a year first?
It's a great
to
question.
Give people an idea.
I think I travel. It depends on the year, but if I travel at least probably around 4 months, 3 to 4 months, maybe a little bit less now but it's like June of this year, I was gone for 3 weeks across Europe and Africa, and 23 days away. It was actually a little over 3 weeks. I mean, it's long. It's like I have a dog. I have this. It's it definitely it can get lonely, but it's also so. I mean, I really do. I pinch myself every day that this is the life I get to live, and I'm not gonna. It is what it is, kind of. But balance is important, and when you realize, okay, it gets really old sleeping in hotel beds. Then there is no hotel bed in the world in the nicest suite of the craziest Dubai penthouse that's nicer than my bed at home, right?
Of course.
So, but that being said, I'm a nomad deep down. Like when you came in today, I'm booking a trip to Palau to go scuba diving and I love that. For me, booking travel and using points, it's like a crossword puzzle, and for people who don't know about points, to sit down, I've got all these different points, and how can I fly the best flights? You start researching the planes for maximum comfort, and when you complete a trip and you can use it on points in first class I literally spend $100 for flights that are $10,000. I still get a rush from that. So. And
you book your own travel now? You don't have.
Well, I have my assistant Adam is basically the points guy. I don't call airlines. He'll do all the nitty gritty when it takes time. But no, I also get on the computer. I need to be up to speed. And that was a hard thing because I have coins in my bank account. I don't necessarily have to use points, but on principle, no, I use points because who wants to burn money, right? And to be true to the brand.
It's not the full price guy.
Yeah, exactly. So, I will splurge on some, our readers will call me out and be like, okay, that was a really expensive hotel. And I like the nice things in life. I'm not going to lie. And when I can get free flights, I'm going to use my money to have the best experiences and rent a boat with friends and go diving and stuff. So I'm definitely not a budget traveler, but I still thrive on getting an amazing deal.
Because I follow a few of the nomads, as you said, the professional nomads. Could you distill down a common trait amongst all of them? Because I watch you, and this is no BS. I can see you have a full, good, you seem happy and really full. But some of these guys I follow, they seem like they live in an airport, and 4 months is kid stuff to them.
Yeah.
They'd be gone 11 and a half months a year if they could.
Well, that's the thing. I do think a lot of people are running away from something, and some people, not everyone is running away from something, but I know a lot of people, a lot of the nomads, and a lot of them are kind of, it's almost like an addiction. Once you start traveling and then you lose your friends at home, kind of, because you're not there.
Yeah, you
and
can't
then,
participate.
You just keep going with it. And I think there is a drug to, that's stimulation. Travel is a stimulant, right? The new, visually, travel stimulates all your senses. So, just to keep going is easier than to stop, right? So, I do think a lot of the nomads are happy, but almost all of them want to stop at a certain point. And I saw early on, and the 4 months that I travel, it's interspersed, right? I'm here in New York. I have a huge family, spend time with them, but yeah, I have to have a trip book, and I know there must be a genetic gene, 'cause I know a lot of people that are like get anxiety if there's not a trip on the books. Like it's
Right.
you know.
And you spoke about this recently, fearful moments while flying, scary turbulence, moments where you're talking to God.
Yep. There's only been two. So one was before I started the blog, I was flying from Toronto to LaGuardia in January on a dark, stormy night, and bumping up and down you could hear the toilet seat going ba-boom, 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 where everyone's kind of white knuckling it. And then we had two aborted landings at LaGuardia, which is on the water. Couldn't even see the ground.
Jeez.
The kicker was I was sitting next to an Air Canada pilot who goes off duty, obviously, and he goes, "Oh, this pilot has no idea what he's doing. Right now we're flying with our flaps up when they should be down." And I'm just like, it was the first time in my life I was like, I'm dying. I'm like, I'd never had the feeling of I'm actually going to die. Two aborted landing, I mean, drenched in sweat. And then another one was a couple years ago. I was flying from the Hamptons on a seaplane because I have a house in the Hamptons, and so much traffic. So there's this new service that you can helicopter a seaplane, and there was this huge storm cloud rolling into Manhattan, and my friends were like, "Don't get on that seaplane." And I was cocky, and I was like, "Oh, they would never put me on a plane if it was dangerous." And it's beautiful in Long Island, and as we come up, we see the Statue of Liberty, and there's this monster rain cloud. And we go into it and just start popping up and down. I had my dog in my arms, and he's such a badass flyer. He was actually licking inside my elbow to calm me. And we ended up having to do an emergency landing in Linden, New Jersey, and shaking. And I got in an Uber. I was like, I'm not. They're like, "Do you want to try to fly back into this?" I'm like, "Hell no." So.
Oh my God.
But those are the two times. Luckily, knock on wood, I haven't had too many. And I've flown hundreds and hundreds of flights. And for nervous flyers out there, flying is way safer than driving by a factor of many. So
You're talking to my mom, by the way.
I know there's so many nervous flyers out there. It's like one of my top questions.
She's terrified, and not only that, sometimes she'll take a little something on the plane to calm her nerves, but somehow it never kicks in until we land, and then she'll be like asleep.
Well, that's a great thing. My mom did the same thing. We were in Doha, and she almost got on the wrong flight. She was trying to board the Chicago flight. I turned around. I'm like, "Mom, get over here. You're not going to Chicago." Never take it before you take off, though. So a lot of people will take it, and the flights are always going to get delayed. I did that once. My first time doing that, I take it, and the flight gets delayed, and the last passenger comes on, and it's Madonna. And she was seated right in front of me, and we're in first class, and I was like, "Oh my God, I need to stay awake to see her antics," because she was being a diva.
Of course.
So I'm like in this zombie mode. But yeah, always wait till you're off the ground before you take the sleeping pill, and always try them at home first. So many people will try sleeping pills or take their friends on a plane, and you add in some alcohol, and those are the stories when you hear people, pulling down their pants and like
full Kristen Wiig moment.
So always try it at home, and do not pair with alcohol.
Crazy stories on the planes. Like I'm talking, seeing people on some.
It's funny. I've never told this story, but years ago I flew with Danny DeVito, and
all right. Enough said. Let's do this. I'm in.
He was fun. He was my seatmate. Really nice guy. Introduced himself in the lounge, and my dog Miles was a puppy, and Danny, we take off right away. We're flying United, and on takeoff, he just gets up out of his seat, and he's like opening up the overhead bin to get something out, and I'm like waiting for the flight attendants to scream,
Sure.
But they didn't say anything because it's Danny DeVito. I guess they were starstruck. But
they couldn't believe he could reach the bins.
Well, he actually had to stand up on the thing to reach it.
That's awesome.
And yeah, he's a ladies' man. That's all I can say. He definitely made a lot of friends in the cabin, and then he does this thing with his foot where he does club foot or something. He does a selfie with his foot in the air. Like he'll be at the Academy Awards and put his bare foot up and take a selfie. So he did that with my dog, and Miles starts licking his like gnarly toenail, and I had to take my dog back. But Danny was a very nice guy.
All right, so Danny DeVito might or might not have joined the Mile High Club.
No, not quite. Well, I don't know. You never know.
Is there anything? What are I've seen sort of how incredible flights have become and how beautiful the cabins can be. What are airlines still getting wrong?
I think airlines are getting wrong first the coach experience. So basically, airlines are making lavatories smaller, seats really cramped. I mean, it's terrible in the back of the plane. In the front of the plane, it's amazing. It's like the golden age of flying is now with, I take showers in the sky, caviar. And that's why I tell people, like use your points because it doesn't have to be horrible. That being said, I think consumers are to blame that most people don't care about the actual comfort of the cabin. So airlines who put really nice things in coach, like JetBlue, aren't seeing the ROI, right? Because people just book the cheapest flight.
Sure.
So, consumers want the cheapest absolute flight. So we can't be surprised that the airlines are going to give us the cheapest absolute product. So I also think in the U.S. airlines get service really wrong in terms of, when you fly Asian and Middle Eastern carriers, there's a huge emphasis on cabin crew to be nice and to serve you. And in the U.S., it's, you're going to get cranky, not all the time. There's plenty of really amazing U.S.-based flight attendants, but I'm only here for your safety. Get yourself a soda. There's a whole
Right.
culture of that, I think, on a lot of U.S. carriers that I would love to see turn around.
You can just see some people who are like waiting to get their they've gotten their 10-year for the airline,
yeah.
and they've got like 3 years left to retirement. They're like,
Yeah.
you're not getting in the way of me in Palm Beach or wherever
No,
they're gonna.
there are people with like 60 years of service. It's crazy, but
And what's your favorite airline?
I really, really like Emirates. The A380 is my favorite aircraft. It's the largest passenger aircraft. And here's a tip. The bigger the aircraft, the less turbulence you feel. And the A380 is also the quietest. So certain planes, this is why, like, as an expert traveler, like, choosing the right planes can make all the difference. You fly an old, loud 777, I mean, it will rattle your ears. I'm so used to flying on these new, smooth, and quiet planes now. Whenever I fly on old planes, long distance, I'm like, this is literally scrambling my brain. So yeah, the A380 and Emirates has over 100 of them, and they have the showers in first class.
Yeah, that doesn't suck.
It's a little gaudy, but Singapore Airlines is a close second, though. Singapore is a unbelievable service, and just, I mean, the Singapore girls, that's what they call their flight attendants with they're not saris, I forget what they're called, but beautiful dresses, and the whole experience is very, very chic.
The accoutrement.
Yes.
All right. So like last two questions for anyone who's like novice travel person out there. Could you distill, like, if you had to give like a quick 2-minute essential tenets of, travel hacks, point utilization, or is it just go to thepointsguy.com and you'll get?
Well, I mean, certainly go to thepointsguy.com. We've got a whole beginner's guide that will bring you through exactly what you need to know. But here's the
Because
thing.
it's intimidating.
Yeah, it's intimidating.
I'll be honest. I'm intimidated.
And we're working on our app right now. It's gonna we're working on what we're calling a points PhD program, which will take you through modules from zero to it might take you a couple months to work through it. But basically the bottom line, in the US, credit cards are the way to get points. They're not really frequent flyer programs anymore. So get yourself a credit card, pay it off in full every month. If you're in credit card debt, don't get a points credit card. Focus, number one, on just getting yourself to a place of being able to pay your bills. Because if you're paying interest, even if you're getting points, you're negating the value of any of those points. But that being said, if you understand your credit score, the biggest factors of your credit score are, do you pay your bills on time, and how much available credit do you have versus how much debt? So that's the ratio, debt utilization or credit utilization ratio. So basically, the more credit cards you have and the less you pay off them in full, your score will go up. So if you manage your cards and pay them off in full every month, you're earning points, avoiding interest, and that's how you win the game. And then there's, sign-up bonuses for credit cards are really rich, 50, 60, 70, up to 100 some thousand points. And so you can get a couple new credit cards a year with these really rich bonuses, and that pays for your travel. So,
But can you cancel them after?
Yeah, you can cancel.
I heard that's bad, though.
I wouldn't recommend canceling a credit card. What you can do is, if it has an annual fee, you can ask them to waive it or give you a bonus, or you can downgrade that card to a no annual fee version so that you're not getting an annual fee. You keep the credit account open so you have that available credit. But, I would say in general, the cards that give you the most value are ones that have annual fees. So,
right.
Getting a card that gives you double, triple, quadruple, 5x points. The goal is every single dollar you spend, try to maximize it. So use different credit cards for different purchases to get more. It sounds really dizzying, but once you get the hang of it and you're all of a sudden even double points on a bunch of categories, you're earning on your everyday spend, an extra free ticket or two per year.
All right, last question. Can you give a travel rant to the things that annoy you about people like going through security? Because like sometimes, and I'm not even a professional traveler, but I want to be like, dude, how are you going to wear hiking boots, like knee-high hiking boots to the airport. It's going to take you 11 minutes to get those off and back on going through security.
Yeah, so security line, if you have TSA pre-check, know the rules, man. Like, you don't have to take off your shoes and, just understand the rules. It's not that hard. I would say, when it comes to boarding the plane, what we call gate lice, don't be a gate lice where you're just hanging out, crowding the area.
I hate that.
So, know your lane and stick to it, and people who are just chomping at the bit to get on the plane. I get it. The overhead bin space is really scarce these days, but if you really want it that bad, like, pay for the extra boarding or get a credit card that'll give it to you. But, in general, just be nice. I don't know why people get on an airplane and all of a sudden it's like combat mode. Yes, you're allowed to recline your seat, but, if there's someone super tall behind you and it's an hour-long flight, like, be cool about it, So
Right.
I just think be a little, if you're in the middle seat rest, you get both armrests, So someone who's in a middle seat, it sucks for them. Give them that armrest. Or, if you really want it, say, hey, do you mind? I just think being a little bit more compassionate. And I'm not one of those snobby travelers. Look, if you want to clap when the plane lands, all for you.
That's my mom. That's my mom.
You know what? I smirk at it. Some people get really annoyed at it. I'm like,
I love it.
Hey, guess what? We're alive.
Yeah, thank God.
It's always clap that we're alive. So.
Oh man, I recently got on a flight and there was a couple, and it was a three passenger row. There's a couple there who just got married, and it's not their seats, and they're like, listen, we just got married, and we're gonna be sitting here. I was like, nah, that's me and my wife's seats. And they were like, we're newlyweds. I was like, that is not
so
part of the agreement.
Yeah, no, yeah, you're totally right. Your lack of planning is not someone else's problem. So
I know.
Yeah.
Oh man. And last question. If you, to make this like an episode of how we made it or how you made it, could you distill down one thing that's helped you build all this inside of you that's led to so much of your success?
Yeah, I would just say, it's truly my love for helping people, and that's what people come up to me and thank me for saving them thousands of dollars. That's really cool. And that, to me, that's what this business is built around, right? Like service. And even as we grow, and I'm very, very aware of the quality of our content and making sure, we can write silly articles about, a woman puking and doing a backflip on a plane that might go viral. But at the end of the day, like, our brand is about making our readers smarter about using points. And
did that happen?
Oh, I don't know. I just made it up. It probably did happen. And it's probably #1 on the site right now. And
solid.
It's a really fun story, isn't it? No, I don't know. It's just like loving what you do it's so important. It sounds so cliche, but like, find that thing that like really lights a fire inside of you and stick with it. And I also think be passionate about it, because that comes off. I meet so many people who trying to pitch businesses or make something work and they're not passionate about it. And I think people are really smart these days and can smell through that. So, align yourself with something that you just love doing every day and, work hard to make money at it. As we've discussed today, there's plenty of ways to make money out there. So,
my man, thank you.
Safe travels.
Loved it. That's it. That was the podcast. Brian Kelly, my guy, the best, the points guy. Listen to his podcast. You'll love it. And that's it, y'all. That was it. How about that, right? We did it. One more podcast in the books. Man, I love doing this. I don't know if anyone's listening, but fuck it. You know what I mean? Like, I love podcasts, and I love that I can reach out to people and they actually do the pod. Last week, I interviewed Mark Romanek, one of my favorite directors for the podcast. I'm pretty sure I just pronounced his last name incorrectly, but nevertheless, what a guy. That episode is coming soon. You guys are going to love it. Yeah. And I have a son, which is cool. And that's going well, I think. We'll see. You don't really know how you're affecting your child till years out. Till they're the weird kid who sniffs some markers in the back of kindergarten, or they're, a biter, or we'll see if the hard work pays off in a couple years. But as of now, my kid is showing no sociopathic tendencies. So it's a win. Anyway, guys, love you. Thank you for listening. Okay, bye.